The Broncos nearly pulled off an all-time highway robbery trade, but unfortunately, the New York Jets owner Woody Johnson got in the way of it. So we're going to live in the NFL for just a moment, and then we're going to talk all about Bo Nix and the incredible season he is having as of late. But the Jets are an absolute dumpster fire right now, and the Athletics reporter Dianna Russini is there to collect all the tears and spill some of the drama as well that has led to where the Jets are right now, including Woody Johnson, the owner of the team, who loves to get his hands on the team and just kind of play Geppetto for a little bit. And they talked about how the Jets were very close to trading for Jerry Jeudy, but Johnson, quote, nixed it. Here's what Russini wrote. Douglas pursued a trade with Denver Broncos for wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, offering Allen Lazard and a day 2 draft pick, according to a league source. But Johnson nixed it. Jeudy was instead traded to the Cleveland Browns. You're telling me the Denver Broncos were this close to getting a player and probably a 3rd-round draft pick for Jerry Jeudy when they ended up getting a 5th and a 6th? I understand this is one big hypothetical and it doesn't really matter too much right now, but man, if Woody Johnson just would have shut the fuck up and not gotten in the way, Allen Lazard, who I don't think is a world-class receiver, but I think he would have been a good fit with Sean Payton, and a 3rd-round pick instead of 2 measly day 3 draft picks, that would have been an all-time steal for Denver. Now, maybe they don't get as much cap relief if they trade with the Jets compared to the Browns. And ultimately, when we look back on this trade in a couple of years, if Jerry Jeudy's having an awesome career in Cleveland, people are going to wonder how he only went for a 5th and a 6th. But it's important to remember that the Browns also picked up his entire guaranteed 5th-year option. But still, I mean, could you have envisioned going from, hey, we have 2 offers on the table. One's a 3rd-round pick and a player. The other's a 5th and a 6th. You must have been banking on the Jets to come through with that trade. Sadly, not to be. Judy, though, if you're wondering, by the way, is having a pretty good year, I'd say. I mean, he had 100 yards last week for Cleveland, 560 yards, 2 touchdowns, a little bit halfway across the season. So he's somewhere on pace for 900-ish yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns, which isn't too shabby. I mean, it's not the numbers that you'd probably expect from a first-round pick this far in his career, but he's dealing with plenty of quarterback turmoil in Cleveland like he did in Denver as well. So, fortunately, Denver could not have really pulled off that true highway robbery trade unless, Woody owner Woody Johnson just stops meddling and gets out of the way. But it would have been cool, no doubt about it. Now, let me ask you this question before we talk all about Bo Nix and the Raiders game and some other news to get to as well. Name a random Broncos draft pick. The more random, the better. Like, I'll go KJ Hamler just to get the ball rolling a little bit, or Michael Ojemudia, but give me a random Broncos draft pick. Now, let's talk about Bo Nix, because he continues to be the number 1 rookie storyline right now in the National Football League. For the first time in Denver Broncos franchise history, a rookie quarterback of theirs has been named AFC Offensive Player of the Week. He also picked up several other awards, like the FedEx Ground Player of the Week, whatever the hell that means, Air Player of the Week. But he also won NFL Rookie of the Week for consecutive weeks as well, doing so against the Chiefs and then against the Falcons, who he torched, going 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, and completed over 80% of his passes. So Bo Nix is definitely starting to get into the mainstream media cycle. The only thing, and I know we don't really need to relive this, is it could have been a little bit sooner if a certain player just holds up a block on a field goal unit, but at least Bo Nix does get some recognition for his outstanding play over the last 4 weeks. I mean, look at the climb for Bo Nix from weeks 1 through 3, no touchdown passes, to weeks 8 through 11. I mean, obviously, players and rookies are going to improve as the season goes along, but this is an exponential growth. I mean, weeks 8 through 11, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. Weeks 1 through 3, 0 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. So, every single week we talk about what I would like to see next from Bo Nix, right? Remember, after the Saints game, it was a nice win, but Bo Nix wasn't maybe at his best. We talked all about his footwork. Well, no one's mentioned a thing about his footwork since then. Every single week I've wanted to add a little bit more onto Nix's plate. Next step for him, I want to see domination in the AFC West. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a second. But first, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my deposit in as quick as my withdrawal is in quick as 15 minutes. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Let's talk about what I mean by AFC West domination. Unfortunately, we're all getting tired of hearing about all the Broncos quarterback struggles since Payton Manning. But one struggle that I would like to point out here is the horrible record. All these notable starters, and I mean starters by guys that made more than just like one appearance in the AFC West. I mean, Peyton Manning went 19-3. The best after that, Brock Osweiler. In 3 games, he won 2. Trevor Siemian, 4-6. Case Keenum, 2-4. Paxton Lynch, 0-2. Joe Flacco, 1-2. Drew Lock, 3-9. Teddy Bridgewater, 1-2. Russell Wilson, 3-7. And this is just more of a me thing than something I'm going to preach as gospel that everyone else should share the same values I do. When I look at quarterbacks, I always look for 2 stats in particular. How do they play at home? Which I know is a little bit of a silly thing, but I feel like with the cost and the expense to go to an NFL game, they should bring their absolute best when they are at home in front of their crowd that paid an arm and a leg to get there. So I always want to look at how they play at home. And then how do they play in the division? Because to me, division games are like worth 1.25 games. It's like a game and a quarter. It's just that much more important for bragging rights for the fan base. Psychologically, the inability to beat a rival, it just gets worse and worse and stacks up year after year. And it just starts to weigh you down. And then, of course, for the fan base, because players come and go, but fans are always going to be fans. And there's nothing worse than going to school or going to work and hearing from Bob once again how your team lost to his team year after year. So I always look for how do they do at home and how they do in division as my own personal little side pot when evaluating quarterbacks. I'm not saying that that's more important than touchdowns or interceptions, but it's just something that I personally take a little gander at to go, all right, this guy's not too shabby. So with that being said, Bo Nix has an opportunity to do something the Broncos have not been able to do in a decade, and that is sweep the Raiders. He also has the opportunity to do something they haven't done in half a decade, and that is sweep any team in the AFC West, which they did against the Chargers in 2019. So people might look at this as just one measly game. If you lose this game but win the next game, what does it matter if you change the order? If you beat the Raiders but lose to the Browns, you still come out 1-1 no matter how you slice it or dice it. But to me, I feel like it's much more important to really start to assert your dominance within the division. Because then that's just going to start, snowballing year after year. And you're going to walk into your home stadium, you're going to walk into the other AFC West stadiums, and you're going to feel like you own it. Something the Chiefs have done so well, something that so many successful dynasties have done, is they always make sure when it comes to division games, we're going to bring our A game. Look at Tom Brady against the Bills, Aaron Rodgers against the Bears, Ben Roethlisberger against the Browns. Those were games where they just felt like, I really need to bring my A++ effort. And so for Bo Nix, this is the next level I would like to see him unlock, is giving this fan base something to really, really cheer about when it comes to success in the division, something they have not experienced in a decade. So with that, there's a couple of ways you can do that outside of Bo Nix. How about Pat Surtain? Because he is getting set for round 2 with the Raiders, and it should be another popcorn-worthy game. We all remember the last time this happened, Surtain returned a pick for 100 yards touchdown. This time, he's going to have a growing threat in Brock Bowers, who went right after Denver to Las Vegas. If anyone's been a longtime viewer of the channel, you know that my preference for the Broncos was take Brock Bowers in round 1 and then get Bo Nix in round 2. Ultimately, it's unlikely we'll say that Bo Nix would have been there in round 2, but both players are having really good rookie seasons so far. Both of them are top 5 in Rookie of the Year odds. So, I mean, a quarterback is always going to be way more valuable than a tight end, but for the time being, it looks like both picks are good picks by their respective teams. But Brock Bowers was really just starting to break out when these two teams met up the first time. Second time, he's become one of the best tight ends in football now. So this is going to be definitely a challenge for Denver secondary to make sure they keep tabs on Bowers because he is really the only threat that the Raiders have offensively. So predict the score for me in the comment section below. Broncos versus Raiders. I'm taking Denver to win 27-17. I want to hear from you, though, down below in the comment section. One quick news item to hit on. The NFL has opted not to flex this game out of Monday Night Football. So week 13, not this upcoming week, of course, but the next week, the Broncos are going to host the Cleveland Browns, who play tonight, Thursday night, at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And once again, I know that I'm probably just taking a little bit and reaching it too far, but the NFL, in my opinion, does have it out for Sean Payton, but they do it in very subtle ways. The Broncos playing a team on Monday night who played on Thursday night is just an extra day advantage for the opposing team, which is Cleveland in this spot. And of course, the Broncos play on Monday night going into their bye, when I'm willing to bet that every other team that had their bye this year did not play on Monday Night Football going into their bye, because now Denver's been gypped one day of their bye week. So they are losing a day on both sides of this week. The Browns have an extra day of rest. They have 11 days going into this game. Meanwhile, the Broncos lose one day of their bye week. Before we get on out of here, though, I want to give some quick shout-outs to the Blue and Orange Club. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel every single week. We will be live on Sunday for the Broncos-Raiders game, so come tune into our watch party. Hang out with us as Bo Nix puts up yet another great game, hopefully, and PS2 dominates the Raiders' offense yet again.